How we do this, we are the truest. Got these fangs super sharp, your shit toothless. Cold-hearted, yeah we ruthless. All the ghouls in the cut, let's get ghoulish. In the graveyard, acting foolish. Finna dance with the devil to no music. Cold-hearted, yeah we ruthless. All the ghouls in the cut, let's get ghoulish.
Hello, ghouls, and welcome to a new episode of a podcast called Ghoulish. I am Maxx Booth, an undead host, and today on the program, I welcome back Betty Rocksteady. She's in front of the mic. She has returned to the podcast to discuss a comic and TV show called The Maxx. So I understand the confusion because my name is also Maxx. However, we do spell the name differently. This comic has two X's. My name has one X. That's the difference. Okay? So we're talking about the Maxx with myself, Maxx, and also Betty, because she has a brand new book out today called Soft Places, published through Ghoulish Books. It is a graphic novel slash novella hybrid that takes great inspiration from The Maxx. And you will find out how when you listen to this episode. Soft Places is out right now. We talk about the book in this episode. It's a great conversation we have, and Soft Places is a tremendous book. I love it. I think you will love it too. It is great. It is sick. It is beautiful to look at. Great illustrations. Go on over to ghoulishbooks.com. Pick yourself up a copy. And now, listen to my conversation with Betty about The Maxx. Okay. I just now Googled what is The Maxx.
And what did it say? I assumed he was your grandfather.
No, my grandfather, his name is Bruce. Oh, wait, that's on my mom's side.
Okay, well, so like if your dad Maxx Booth the second?
Yeah, my grandfather on my dad's side is Maxx. I don't know why I immediately went to the other grandfather.
Ah, yes, that doesn't make any sense.
my grandfather, Max, spelled with one X, he was a scientist. Is the Max in this comic also a scientist?
He is not. He is a bum.
A bum.
Or a superhero.
I see. Okay. My grandfather was on the team that invented like fake leather, evidently.
Okay.
Also, he worked for a company called DuPont in Virginia, and it turns out that company was diabolical and poisoned a lot of people in like the bottle supply. So he's like the opposite of a superhero.
He's a bit of a villain.
Yeah, exactly.
That tracks. That makes a lot of sense to me.
So he might be more like this Mr. Gone. I'm not sure if this Gone fella is a villain or not. I wasn't able to read up enough on it to understand who this guy was.
Okay, well, he definitely is pretty villainous, but he has a lot of backstory that makes it a little less clear, I guess, in the end.
Okay, so who is he exactly?
Well, Mr. Gone. Should we start with like who he is, or should we do like a little rundown of what the Maxx is?
Yeah, I think what you just said is probably best.
Yeah.
Let's take it away. Explain what the Maxx is.
Okay, so the Maxx is a very cool comic series, which kind of epitomizes what I think is cool about comics. It's from the 90s. It was 35 issues, written and drawn by Sam Keith. He also did the art for the first Sandman graphic novel, and he has a couple other series out. Zero Girl and Four Women are two that I think of offhand. So the Maxx is basically, it's about a superhero or a bum, the social worker that helps him out, Julie, and they're kind of like breaks in reality where they're going back and forth between the real world and a strange version of the Australian outback that has all sorts of weird creatures in it. It's very cool, very stylish, very dark. I don't know if it's like, I wouldn't call it straight up horror, but it definitely has enough overlap into the horror genre that I think a lot of horror fans would like it.
And he's living in a box, is that right? Is this just a plain old box, or is this some type of magical box?
It's pretty much just a plain old box that he hangs out in an alleyway.
He's huge too, so it surprises me he fits in this box.
He just kind of crams himself in there, yeah.
Like a cat.
Well, pretty much, yeah. He might just kind of be a giant cat. he sort of ends up being a giant bunny in the end, which is a little.
What do you mean by that?
Okay, maybe we'll. Okay. So he is being ripped back and forth between these two worlds, and he appears to be fighting this villain a lot named Mr. Gone, who is a serial rapist and murderer and very evil, and he has this big dramatic black cape that kind of envelops things, and all these little weird creatures. And for the whole series, or for the first part, the first plot line, while Mr. Gone is creating all this trouble, he's also hinting to Maxx and Julie that he knows about their dark backstories, and he knows what's under the what was under the Max's mask that he wears. So for the first half or so of the series, it's, he never takes off his mask. We don't know what's under the mask. The Maxx doesn't want to know what's under the mask. He's kind of scared.
I'm impressed with your ability to say Maxx and mask in the same sentence. It's pretty.
I wasn't sure how well it was going, but I'm glad to hear that that was working.
I do have to say I've seen episode 1 of the show, and I skimmed a little bit of the comic. I didn't realize he was really a mask. I thought that was just his head.
Yeah, it looks like it could just be his head, and honestly, it's pretty fused into his head.
So is it kind of like the Mask movie? Phil just like eats into his head.
Almost, not quite.
I love that movie.
It's a pretty good movie. Maybe we should talk about that instead.
Okay, I like that. It's a good dog movie.
Yeah, there is a lot of dogs.
Dog's name is Maxx.
Oh shit! So we can pretty easily transition just into talking to the mask instead, if you want. That's pretty creepy.
This is going to be the Maxx mask episode.
To be totally honest, I remember very little about that movie.
That's okay. We can stick with the original plan of talking about the Maxx.
Okay, cool. So the outback that he goes into is this distorted place, like Australia, kind of stylized after Australia, but not the real Australia. And there's all sorts of weird creatures. And it turns out that place is actually Julie's subconscious landscape that she has yanked the Maxx into.
Oh.
So it is her inner world, because I guess we're giving away spoilers. It is a 20-year-old comic, or 30 years, I guess. So I think it's probably fine. Because we later find out that Julie, all the Dr. Gone in his regular life before he became this evil villain knew Julie when she was a little girl, and her subconscious landscape was built up by overhearing his stories about the Australian outback, but she kind of internalized them into a different thing.
I have to ask, is he also a doctor in this? Because you just called him Doctor.
Okay, just call him Doctor. No. So in my book that's coming out soon, there's a character named Dr. God, which you may have heard of, Max. I'm not sure. Soft Places.
Have you heard that?
Okay.
No.
It's coming out from this publisher called Ghoulish Books. I don't know. Okay. I don't think anyone's really heard of them.
Wait, is that the comic that features that like hideous drawing of a penis?
I wish it was.
Oh,
It
I'm
should
thinking of
be.
something else.
I owe my readers an apology for not drawing a disgusting penis because it should have had one. We know that.
I love that no one knows what we're talking about at
No,
all.
they don't. Maybe they'll figure it out. Maybe they won't. It doesn't
I
matter.
mean, once they read Soft Places and they see the lack of a grotesque cock in it, they'll go, "Oh yes, that's what they meant in the podcast."
That's what should have been there. Yeah, I think you're
Anyway,
right.
okay, so this Australia is Julie's subconscious. Why?
Yeah.
Why Australia?
Well, because during the part of her childhood where her childhood kind of died, which I'll get into in another moment, um, Uncle Artie, which is Dr. Gon's original name in his human form, he was just always over at the house talking to her dad about his trips to Australia. So it kind of got distorted in her mind into like, I don't know, just like a cool place where she could
Okay,
go to hide, basically.
that makes sense. And I have to say, what I did see of the show, that's exactly how I've always imagined Australia looking.
Yeah, just these insane creatures. The is, I believe they're pronounced. I'm not sure if it's pronounced is or eyes. It's spelled ICZ.
What is
Um,
that?
they are these weird little creatures that populate Julie's outback. They are just like little round guys with arms and legs and teeth, lots of teeth, no eyes.
I like
So
that. Okay.
some they're white, but then when they get pulled into the real world, sometimes they are black and much more vicious. Lots
Okay.
and lots of teeth then.
So things are escaping Julie's subconscious into the real reality.
Right, because she has been repressing a bunch of stuff.
Gotcha.
Um, when her childhood died was basically around this bunny that she found that was run over by a car, and then she kept it under her bed for like weeks as it slowly died
Oh no.
until eventually her mom had to deal with it. But it was very dramatic. I read this comic as a very young child. Well, not very, early teenager. I read the series very out of order because I picked it up at the flea market,
Hmm.
and it was a very I just read every issue that I had over and over and couldn't quite make sense of what was going on, and it lodged itself deep into my subconscious.
Okay, this is
So
making sense.
yeah, basically my outback is the Maxx.
I wonder what my outback is.
But that's a good question.
I don't know. The Betty.
Everyone has one. But anyway, so her mom smashes up this bunny, and that's when her childhood dies, and that's a big trauma that she represses. Um, Later, Julie is after college. She stops to help a hitchhiker, and he rapes her. So this happens, and this closes her off even more to the real world. Like she blocks off the real world. She's existing more in the outback, and everything's getting more unstable between the outback and the real world until eventually she sees someone else on the road who needs help like several weeks later, and rather than stopping to help him, she has a flashback and she runs him over and does a hit and run.
Oh my god.
This guy, this creates, when she decides to cover him up with an old box and some junk in the alley, this creates the real rift between the outback and the real world. And a bunch of this old lamp falls on the guy's head and turns itself into a suit, and he becomes the Maxx.
Okay, so just let me recap what you just said
Yes.
in case I misunderstood something. So she is driving, she hits a homeless man
Mm-hmm.
and then hides the body by covering him up with a box and a lamp.
Right.
And that creates the split.
That creates a split, yeah.
Good God. This is
Right.
a really sad comic.
It's quite dark. And I read it at a very influential time in my life. And like I said, the way I read it, I think really added to the experience because it's a very psychological, very surreal. A lot of weird stuff happens in it. Like that's only the first plot line that we've kind of covered there.
Wow.
There's two. It's only 35 issues long, but like a lot happens.
You know, the looking like at the title font, it doesn't look like that would be this type of comic. It looks more like an action eventual type of comic, you know?
Yeah, it does, because it presents itself as kind of being about a superhero, but then it is just, he's not really a superhero. It's dark. It's weird. It's very stylish. The cartoon was really cool. You watched the first episode. It was
I did. It's only what, 10 episodes?
I think there's 13,
Oh, okay.
but they're all quite short. I think they're only 11 minutes each.
Yeah.
The art is pulled right from the comics, like panel for panel.
I did notice that because I watched episode 1 and I began to read the first issue, and like when they arrest the Maxx and they're driving and you see the outlines of the two cops in front of him, it's like identical to the comic and the show.
Yeah, they took like almost, so they only covered about like the first plot line up until when all that we just discussed was kind of revealed, and then Julie decides to move away and try to heal, and she leaves the Maxx, and it's all very sad.
Okay, so she moves away, and do we still follow both of them in the next plot line, or do we just are we done with Julie then?
No, Julie ends up coming back. For a while we deal with Maxx and Sarah, who is Dr. Gone's daughter. She thinks, yeah, when he was Artie, she's his daughter, and her mom is friends with Sarah. Okay. Sorry, her mom is friends with Julie. And she ends up getting Sarah to see Julie because she's like I don't know, she's a teenager. She's got all this big black hair. She's an outsider. She doesn't have any friends. She's like very angsty. She wants to be a writer. So a lot of it's about her being a writer and being very edgy. And she makes friends with the Maxx and Julie. So the second plot line, we're dealing a bit more with Sarah and kind of her past. And Julie ends up coming back. She's super pregnant. And then eventually there's a 10-year skip, and we come back and we don't know where anyone is, and they all kind of have to get back together. Okay. Julie's kid is around. We're seeing Dr. Gone kind of rehabbed into a functioning member of society, trying to rebuild a relationship with his daughter.
Yeah.
A lot of what happened was actually his psychic projection that he was sending to help everyone. But he's so perverted, and he had a fucked up childhood too. So his psychic projection ends up going kind of evil on him, is what happened with Dr. Gone.
Oh, wow. So what is the Maxx doing in all of this? Is he just like witnessing? Like, what is he doing?
So in the beginning, in the first part of the plot line, the Maxx is just kind of trying to pull apart the mystery and figure out who he is, who Julie is, what's behind the mask, which is a bunny, which I mentioned earlier. We didn't touch back on that, but basically he's
yes.
Yeah, Julie's spirit animal got projected onto him, and I do want to mention he used spirit animal. Sam Kieth used spirit animal kind of terminology in some of this, and I do think that's like cultural appropriation. It's not really right for him to have been using that in that way, but I guess we can kind of think of it as an animal guide.
Yeah.
It was the 90s. He just touched on it and didn't use it appropriately, but I don't think a lot of harm was created. I hope not.
It's okay.
Yeah.
The Maxx is canceled.
The Maxx is like slightly canceled. But...
Maxx is going down. You know what? No more issues.
They're just gonna have to not publish any more issues of the Maxx, unfortunately. You know, there was actually in the last number of years, there's a mini series where the Maxx meets Batman.
Okay.
So in that one, the Maxx has. Do you know much about Batman?
I know a little bit.
Yeah. So the Maxx. I only read this once, so my memory's not quite as good as it is with the regular series. But basically, the Maxx is in Arkham Asylum.
Okay.
And someone's doing experiments on him, and then we end up getting into all the different Batman villains outbacks.
Okay.
Which is in Australia for everybody. It's just their different childhood safety place kind of thing.
Now I'm imagining like the classic Batman villains, but as Australian. Is that like
no,
okay. Now the Maxx is basically just a figment of Julie's imagination, right? That became a real thing.
Oh yes, no. So he is actually the bum who lives, but Julie kind of projects her shit onto this bum.
Oh,
So
okay.
he's not sure who he is anymore. His reality has been bent by everything that happened here. So Julie's stuff gets projected on him, and then once everything gets revealed, it kind of separates again. So he has to go back to his life of being a bum, basically.
And
He
there's
goes,
no mask anymore.
there's no mask anymore, except later he makes his own little costume because they're trying to kind of get shit together again and heal some of the rifts in reality. So
Okay.
he ends up dressing up as the Maxx again in just like a costume that he makes from some garbage, and it's kind of funny looking.
At what point is it explained why his name is spelled with two X's?
I don't know. Actually, there wasn't any, I don't think there's any explanation of why he's called the Maxx. And eventually later, Sarah gets her own the Maxx, who is a whore. So there's two of the Maxes running around, and they're both just like very dramatic. Like I think you saw how they introduced, like how he introduced himself in the cartoon, where he's like,
Uh-huh.
and I am the Maxx in that beautiful deep voice.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the Sarah's the Maxx is also doing that, and he's a horse underneath. I forget.
Oh, a horse. I
Yeah.
thought you said he was a hilt.
Oh no, he's a horse. I'm not sure if they explained why Sarah had something about a horse. I'm not sure what the
She ran one over and kept it with a box.
she once shot a horse or something. I don't know.
And then a lamp fell on the body. At any point do these two Maxes go by any other name? Like is the Maxx like a superhero name and then they have another name like Chad?
Yeah, so the other guy's name is Norbert. And the original Max's name, his name is Dave.
Okay. Oh, okay. So I'm really just baffled that Maxx just wasn't the person's name.
Right? No, it's just the Maxx is the superhero name that the two Maxes share, but one is a bum named Norbert. I'm not sure why it's also a bum. I'm so my memory for the first plot line is much better than for the second plot line. That's the one that I read 5,000 times as a teenager. I've read the whole series 4 or 5 times though, probably straight through, and I just kind of flipped through them again last night to refresh my memory.
Yeah. Whoa. Okay. So I'm on the Wikipedia page of the Maxx, and I just skimmed through, and I got to the second storyline, and I immediately saw the phrase "a giant murderous banana slug."
Named Iago.
What's going on with that?
So there is a giant murderous banana slug, and he has a list of all the people he wants to kill. And Sarah and Julie, he's come from, I believe, Sarah's outback.
Okay.
Or maybe Julie's out. I'm not exactly sure where he came. I'm gonna be honest. The second half of the plot is a little disjointed.
Yes.
Some of it gets a little wacky for me.
That's okay.
But Iago's a giant banana. He's very into positive thinking. Like all of Iago's dialogue is very much like no negative thoughts are allowed and positive thinking only. Like he's a good vibes kind of banana slug. And if
okay.
there's a bunch of Izzes that are also pink fairies in this reality. They're Sarah's. So he's like feeding people to them.
Excellent.
They're fairy piranha Izzes under a dock. So Iago's killing people, and they're trying to stop him.
Okay. So I know it's like presented almost as a superhero thing. So do we see this Maxx going around trying to stop crime? I think in the beginning of episode 1 at least, he gets arrested trying to save somebody. But beyond that,
yeah. So mostly he is fighting with Dr. Gone. There's also a couple other superhero cameos like the Savage Dragon and Pit, which are other Image comic superheroes. So he teams up with Pit for a couple issues, and yeah, there's quite a bit of fighting. He's doing a lot of fighting in the outback of like weird creatures and hunting down stuff. And mostly fighting with Mr. Gone, who is like kidnapping women. He kidnaps Julie at one point. And I didn't even mention, he loses his head a lot. Um,
Who?
because Mr. Gone.
Okay.
So because he got so when he was in Australia, again, this is a bit cultural appropriation, not quite not perfect by any means, but when he was in the Australian outback, he learned a bunch of like Aboriginal religion stuff, and that's how he started getting into other people's mental subconscious spaces. He was able
Yeah.
to kind of project himself into them.
Okay.
So when he gained that power, he couldn't be killed. So when he shot himself, he tried to kill himself after his relationship with Sarah's mom went bad. He confessed to Sarah. He had a bunch of trauma in his childhood, and he confessed to Sarah's mom that he had thought he was afraid that he would someday abuse Sarah. So she left him, and she told Sarah he was dead. And he tried to kill himself, but injuries to his head don't affect him, so his head
Okay.
grew back. Later in the series, he kidnaps Julie, and Julie escapes and cuts off his head, but he's still alive. He's just like a head in a bag for a while.
Nice.
He's able to get his izzes, which are like they kind of obey him. He's able to get them to drop him off at Sarah's school, and she thinks it's a bag of clay that talks to her and gets her to take it home. And like, there's just a lot of weird stuff. He's just like a little head. Later, he gets sewn back onto a body, but it falls off sometimes. But yeah, there's some really weird art of his little gross head.
I like that a lot. It's funny to me that a head doesn't grow back on the little body.
Yeah,
Maybe.
that would. It seems that the head is the part that stays alive. I guess
Okay.
I'm not. Yeah, I'm
Okay.
not sure how logical it all actually played out, but his little head is it's weird. It's cool. I want to say too, just like the art in the Maxx is super fucking cool. It's I love Sam Kieth's art style. He jumps around in different art styles a lot. Like sometimes things are very detailed and beautiful looking, and then sometimes they're really cartoony and goofy looking, and the proportions are off, and it just looks like not that great, but in a cool way. And then other times it's beautifully detailed but disgusting. Like he is just really putting a lot of love into drawing something very gross.
Yeah, it
And
looks great.
yeah, it's a really cool. I like his art style a lot. He does that in all the work of him that I've seen. I haven't. I think he did some superhero stuff, and I haven't really followed that. But I like all his series are very like psychological, kind of Jungian, feminist kind of themes. He's cool.
Do you know anything about like the origins of the Maxx, like how it came to be and stuff like that?
I don't really. I did read that he like it wasn't really plotted out beforehand. I think he just kind of dove in.
Yeah.
There was a little like mini comic or like image. I might not be 100% correct on this, but I think they Image used to do kind of like an issue with just a bunch of little short things in it, and I think it may have been just like a little mini comic, and then it ended up being developed into a series.
Okay.
There's also like there's it's five graphic novels of the main story. And then the fifth one is Friends of the Maxx, and it's just like three stories that take place in the Maxx universe, but they have nothing to do with him. They're just kind of characters that we might have seen in passing, and they get kind of a full-on storyline. And again, they're just kind of more like psychological than anything else. Dealing a lot like everyone's very traumatized in Sam Keith's work. There's just always like childhood trauma that is affecting what's
Yeah,
going on now.
I was just looking at the plot line of what was it, five women, I think the
Four
title.
women, oh
Yeah,
man.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah, that one is rough. I haven't read that in a while. I have it and I loved it. I read it quite a few times a long time ago. But yeah, that one's about like a bunch of rape too.
These comics seem pretty heavy. Let's talk about how they inspired Soft Places.
Yeah, so Soft Places, there's like quite a few winks to the Maxx in it. I reread the Maxx last year when I was kind of developing Soft Places, um, and I watched it. I think I watched the series a couple times while I was drawing it, actually, just kind of as background.
Yes, because for those who do not know, Soft Places is not only a novella, but also a graphic novel. It's a hybrid. So talk about like what led to doing something like that, because I've never seen anything like this.
Yeah, I haven't either. I just knew that I wanted to do something that had, like, I've wanted to do a comic basically forever. And I knew that I wanted to start bringing more art into my writing. Like, Writhing Skies, I think, really benefited from having the illustrations because it gave it a weird edge, I think. And I just like the way cool art makes me feel. So I knew I wanted to do something with more art in it, and I was thinking I wanted to do a comic, um, but it needed to make sense to use both. It couldn't just be
Yeah.
like tacked on. So South Places ends up with, there is kind of like a psychological landscape that we spend a lot of time in, and all that stuff takes place as a comic, whereas the regular, real, boring, shitty real world takes place as prose.
Now, I hadn't thought about this until right now, but these illustrations, do they take place in the Outback?
I guess they kind of could take, but like certainly not in Julie's Outback or the Australian Outback. But I guess we could like say that yeah, it is basically an Outback in the Maxx.
I mean specifically Australia.
Oh no, they do not.
Okay.
I'm sorry to say they do not.
I mean, you don't specifically say it doesn't, though.
You raise a good point. Maybe it's just another different kind of Australia. That's possible.
I know, like, there's a bunch of slugs in this Outback of Yields that do speak with an Australian accent. They say mate a lot.
Okay, I mean, I'm gonna correct you. They're snails, but yeah, they do say mate a lot.
There's a little difference between slug and snail. I don't think there is. One has a shell, but when they remove the shell, they become a slug. That's my understanding of snails and slugs.
Sure, that's accurate. Yeah, that is 100% accurate.
I've said it before, I do not think they exist. I've never seen one in real life.
I find that I see a slug like every day.
What about snails?
I see snails pretty often too, usually after it rains.
It's raining right now. Maybe I'll see a snail.
You should go look for. I don't want to, like, they must have snails and slugs in Texas.
I don't know. This is the first day it's rained since I think April. It's pretty exciting.
Holy shit, that's a long time to not have rain.
Yes, it got so dry. My backyard just like created these giant cracks in the grass, and there's no bottom to them. It's like a gateway to hell.
You should just like go. Maybe that's how you get. Maybe it's like a rift in reality, and that's how you get into your Outback.
It's really possible. We bought like 5 giant bags of dirt to like put into the holes to fill them up, and we emptied them all into the hole, and we never saw what happened to them.
Oh my god!
It's terrifying.
That's really frightening.
I'm afraid of the dog just like falling down into.
Oh god! Yeah, you should put a little fence up.
A tiny little fence.
It's like a little hole fence.
The thing is, we have like a dozen of them. They just, I don't know. Maybe it's gonna swallow the house.
Yeah, that could happen.
Would be pretty cool.
That
No
would be
snails,
cool.
though.
Yeah, that's not as cool.
Snails in Texas. Okay, hold on. I'm Googling this. Oh, we have a edited fake photoshopped. Never mind.
Oh.
It says we have snails, but I mean, who could trust the internet, right?
I don't trust the internet at all.
No, not at all. Okay.
Yeah, Soft Places and the Maxx. The other big reference is that I named like Dr. Gone after Mr. Gone, of course.
Who, by the way, the entire episode you have said Dr. Gone.
I know, I'm not surprised. To clarify, really Mr. Gone is in the Maxx, Dr. Gone is in Soft Places.
I mean, did they ever say he doesn't have like a doctoral degree?
They don't specifically say that, no. So maybe he is a doctor.
He could be a doctor. Now, what type of doctor is he in Soft Places?
He is a psychiatrist.
Right. And what is like the basic setup of the book?
Okay, so we start with a woman wandering naked through the street. She has a weird head wound, and she gets taken into the hospital and she seems psychotic. She's rambling about this strange place she was at, and her memory is all fucked up. And then she's put into the care of this doctor who is clearly a pervert.
Yeah.
So in the book, she is basically trying to get away from him and get back to this weird place that she kind of remembers that she was in. And yeah, we go there and then we kind of find out what Dr. Gone has been doing.
I think anything else would be revealing too much.
Yeah.
It's a good, I mean, it's not that long of a book.
No, it's 100 pages.
Yeah.
I think it's pretty cool.
I think so.
Yeah, I think so too. I'm really happy with how it came out. I feel like I did what I set out to do.
And for those listening, on the website, ghoulishbooks.com, you were kind enough to draw 200 unique creatures.
I drew so many weird little guys.
Yeah, so if you pre-order or even buy one after the release date, assuming we still have some, the first 200 paperback copies on the website will get a signature sticker from Betty, and she's drawn a little monster guy. How long did that take you?
I spent like a week and a half or so on them, and I would just do like a little pile every day. I would just kind of sit down with it for, I don't know, half an hour. Sometimes I would do that 2 or 3 times a day. I went to like craft night. Me and some of my friends do a little craft night, and they're like, they're usually doing like making cool socks and knitting and stuff, and I'm like drawing weird little horrible monsters.
I gotta ask you about craft night. You've mentioned this to me a lot. Is this someone's house?
Yeah, my friend every 2 weeks she has 5 or so of us over, and everyone just kind of works on whatever they're working on.
Okay, that makes way more sense. I mean, you've been talking about this for a long time now, and this whole time I've been in my head imagining you going to like a rec center and sitting in a giant circle of people.
That's hilarious. I would never do that. I do not have that sort of social energy.
That's why it always seems surprising to me.
Yeah, no, it's a small group of like some cool girls who are working on things, and I drew like quite a bit of soft places. I was usually working on that for the last year or so.
That's cool. Do you ever like brainstorm any ideas with them on craft night?
Well, when I was not for soft places, because I was kind of already had it all plotted out by the time I was working on it there. But some of the girls are definitely like, we talk about writing and stuff. My friend.
What would you do if they like looked over your shoulder and like suggested to do something different? Would you just leave?
Yeah, I would just walk right out.
Excellent. I know there's a local bookshop by you that's getting in copies, and you're going to go in and sign them. What info can you say about that?
Yeah, I live in Sydney, Nova Scotia, Cape Breton in Canada, and there's a local bookstore called On Paper Books, and they're getting some copies in, and also our local Indigo is getting some copies in, so I'm going to go to both places and just kind of sign them. I'll draw a little weird guy in them, and I'm not doing like an official signing, but the books will be there.
Right. Is Indigo like the Canadian bookshop chain?
Yeah, Indigo Chapters. It's like Canadian, like a big bookstore kind of thing.
Gotcha. That's cool. I like the name. Awesome. I think that might be everything. Am I missing anything obvious about the Maxx or soft places?
No, I think we pretty much covered everything I wanted to talk about. I feel good about that.
Excellent. Yeah.
That was fun.
Great episode. I know the show is not the easiest to find. I think you can rent episodes like an Apple TV. I found episode 1 on Vimeo, but I could not find any additional episodes.
Oh, it's too bad. It's really fun. Like, it only covers the first it's only 13 episodes, so it only covers a little bit of it, but it's really cool.
Yeah, I wonder if it was released on DVD or something. Maybe I can find it that way.
I own it on DVD.
Oh, cool. And same with the comic. I assume they probably have like a collection of all of them at this point.
Yeah, I don't know if there's one big collection, but I have they have it out in like 6 graphic novels.
Awesome. And
I guess 7 now with the Arkham Dreams one.
I'm not going to read that.
Yeah, no. That's fair.
I want to check out these other comics as well. They seem pretty bleak and
Zero
depressing.
Zero Girl was cool and very strange.
Okay.
Um,
And
for women, I don't know if there's a graphic novel. I have it as single issues, but definitely worth checking out.
okay. And Soft Places. I've already read that, so I don't need
Yeah, you
I'm
don't
not
need
going
to
to
read
look into
that.
that one.
You
But
probably have several copies of that around, so
I have
you're all set.
I have hundreds of copies.
Well,
Please go to ghoulishbooks.com and buy them.
we'll just buy them all.
All right. How can folks find you online?
BettyRocksteady.com is my website, and I'm on Facebook and Twitter and everywhere as Betty Rocksteady.
Did you get on TikTok yet?
I'm not on TikTok, no. I'm on Instagram, and I'm hanging out in the Ghoulish Discord lately. I don't know if you've heard of that.
I have, yeah. I invited you.
Oh, okay, yeah, it's pretty cool.
And that was Betty Rocksteady talking about the Maxx in celebration of the release of Soft Places, out now through GhoulishBooks.com. Go buy a copy of Soft Places. Do it. You will not regret it. Get Soft Places.
Live spooky, die spooky.
Rest in peace, Maxx.